See, I'll tell you, as a life and business coach, I get to travel around the country and have a lot of different clients, and I'm grateful for that. And I'll tell you about one of them. He's a butcher. Now, how many of you go to a butcher very regularly? Any of you still go to a butcher? A few of you do. Well, I appreciate that, and so do my clients who are butchers. And on this particular day, my client was just wrapping up. It was almost 6 o'clock, and he thought, this might be the best day of my entire business. He thought, I look back, and he's thinking, I have only got 1 chicken, 2 pork chops, and some scraps that could be used for stew. And he thought, how in the world could this day get any better? I'm about to close. I'm going to go home and just have a great night. Maybe I'll even make the stew. And just then, the ring of the door, and he thought, it's going to get better. Someone else is coming in, and he thought, what if I don't have what they want? But he thought, that's okay, I'll see what they want. He goes out, there's this young guy out there, and he said, how may I assist you, sir? And the young guy said, I'm recently married, I just started cooking, and I want to surprise my wife tonight with a really great dinner. And the butcher said, terrific, what were you thinking? He said, well, I was into some of the cookbooks, and I'm thinking of doing a whole chicken. And on the outside, the butcher thought, okay, chicken, that sounds good. And on the inside, he's doing the happy dance. Like, I can't believe this. I have this chicken in the back, right? So he said, I'll go back and see what I have. So he goes in the back, and he's so excited, and he gets out the chicken, and he brings it out, and he said, what do you think? And the guy said, looks a little smaller than the one that was in the cookbook. But what else do you have? Just then, the guy's phone rings. So the butcher went in the back. He said, I'll be right back. He went in the back, and he thought, this guy's a new chef, new cook. I could tell him about the pork chops, but that's kind of tough. They could be dry. He doesn't really have time to make the stew if he wants to surprise his wife with this great meal. So he said, I could just fluff this chicken. So he thought, So feeling as confident as he could, he decided he would just fluff the chicken. And like any good butcher did, he fluffed it very well. And he even put it on a smaller plate, so it made the chicken look bigger. And when he did that, he went out, and the guy was just getting off the phone, and he said, what do you think about this one? And the guy's eyes just lit up. And he said, oh my gosh. He said, that looks exactly like the one in the book. He said, and please forgive me that I was on the phone. He goes, but that was my new bride. And he said, she invited our neighbors over for dinner, so I'll take them both. Yes. You didn't come to hear about fluffing chickens, and I realized that. You came to learn about maximizing your moximility and how to do that. And today I'll share with you a little bit about what is moximility, tell you about reversing the Slavification of America, and some of you have asked me about that with the book or you read on my bio, and then tell you 3 things and the 4 drivers for people, and then we'll get to the 10 ways you can really maximize your moximility. Does that sound all right? Okay. So as we look at this, you'll see that in the idea of reversing the Slavification of America, what comes to mind for you with that?
Fast food nation.
Fast food nation. Fast food nation. You didn't think, oh, that sounds like moxie and humility, right?
Yeah, you did.
A little bit? Well, that's the idea of it. Reversing the Slavification of America is really the umbrella to everything I get to do. And thanks for having me today. Maximizing your moximility is about having the moxie to really know you're the best at what you do, and then being humble enough to know that there's far more for you to learn. And what we find in our society is either people have the moxie, but they really don't know where to stop it, and to gain more, it's just like, I don't say I am the only expert on speaking and communicating. There's a ton for me to learn. But I also have that humility of when people are grateful and say thank you, it really does make my day, and I think, wow, what else can I do? And so that's the moximility side. Know that you're the best, and then know that you can get better. Does that seem fair?
Yes.
And then reversing the Slavification of America, well, that is effective communication, professional behaviors, and thriving relationships. Would any of you like to be a little bit better in communicating, have stronger behaviors, and more thriving relationships? Because if you didn't raise your hand, it's probably a good time to go. Because that's all I do, and I'm not going to change for you, because nobody came to hear something that was like, kind of do a little bit of communicating, don't worry about it. Yeah, if your behaviors are okay, and you show up late, and you do things like that, it's all right. You're not going to hear that from me. So I will consistently give you that information. And then there are 3 reasons things don't happen in our lives. And do any of you have children?
Yes.
Okay. We have a 4-legged dogster, and it's the same for her as it is for you. People either don't know They don't know how or they don't want to. So, since a lot of you have kids, do any of you produce trash at your house? Garbage, right? She's talking about garbage at 8 o'clock in the morning? Yes. And the idea is, who takes out that trash? Do you take it out or your spouse take it out? A lot of you, yes, you do? Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, do you think your kids don't know that the smelly stuff that hopefully they put under the sink in the can, do you think they don't know that's trash?
Well, they know, but they don't want to remember.
Yeah, they're your kids. They should be smart enough to know. Do you think they don't know how to wheel out? I don't know how they do it in Weston Chapel, but in Tampa, we wheel out these big blue bins on 2 days out of the week. Do you think they don't know how to do that? Again, they're your kids. They should be smart enough to know how to do that, right? Or do they just not want to?
Don't want to.
They don't want to.
Right.
So either people don't know, how, or they don't want to. But if you want to reverse the Slavification of America, there's a fix for each of them. If people don't know, it requires information. Imagine if nobody knew about WOW. They have to know about it in order to know to be here. And if they don't know how to get involved, that takes talking to Lauren or April or one of any of you at the chamber to find out more about it. How do I go? How do I register? How do I get there? Those type of things. And the don't want to, that's an attitude check. And let me tell you, you will probably not like this. The majority of the time, the attitude check is on you, not the other person. Because if I said, oh, I know April's going to be difficult this morning. She's going to be down and negative, and I'm not looking forward to seeing her.
Me?
If that were the case, and then I see April, and what does she say to me? What does she say?
Good morning, how are you?
And gives me a
Hug.
right? And you know what I say? Did you see? Did you see her attitude? Did you see how bad her attitude was? What happens is we can convince people that other people have bad attitudes because we have a bad attitude about them. So check your attitude first and check the other person's second. Because I dare tell you, I didn't see it happen a lot here, but a lot of times I am fortunate to get to speak all over. Jane can attest to this, that's for sure. A lot of times I will say to people when I meet them, I either say, happy to meet you, or I'm your speaker. And I say, happy to meet you to people who are pleasant, and I say, I'm your speaker to those who go like this. Hi. Nice to meet you. Which, ladies, I dare say, a lot of women do it. And it doesn't hurt my feelings. You came to see me, right? Really? So anyway, attitude check is very important for us. And I've got all this for you if anybody wants to see these things. But lastly, I'll tell you the other two things before we get to the top 10 list that I shared in the preview there with the agenda. There are only 4 drivers, too, for the reasons we do things. So if you get over the reasons things haven't happened, and now you want to know, how do I incent people? Does anybody have anybody who works for them where you feel like they're not doing the best that they could do? Anybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, if you want to take a note, great time to do it. People are driven for 4 reasons. Money, time, people, and opportunity. And money is a driver for some people. It's not for all, though. I have a physician who I work with who thought he just pays people basically double what he feels they're worth, and then he can expect anything out of them. Do you know what those people do? They badmouth you and steal from you. Because they know how you feel about them. You can't hide behind money. But let's go back to when we were all just out of school. We have more time or money on our hands? Time. Remember when your friends would say, will you move me across the city and I'll pay you in either beer or wine and pizza? And we were like, sounds good. That sounds like really good pay to me. Now if somebody says that to you today, I'm hoping you're going to say no. Yeah, Renee, you might get that. But
That's why
anyway,
you're moving me.
it doesn't pay the rent. It doesn't pay the rent. So things change in our lives. And then we get to the place where a lot of times it's people that matter the most. Mm-hmm. Aren't there people who you'd about do anything to spend more time with, and people who you'd about do anything to spend less time with? Mm-hmm. Right? And so you start making those boundaries based on that. And then you have opportunities, and it could be for your business. It could be to meet someone, travel somewhere. You talked about your wonderful cruise. But those opportunities then are your drivers. So I encourage you to figure out how are your 4 drivers prioritized? And if you don't know how your children's, your spouse, your parents, your team members, if you don't know that, you may attempt to incent them in a way that doesn't drive them. And you notice I don't say motivate because you will not ever motivate anyone. I am not a motivational speaker. I love it when I get introduced and people say, I'm a motivational speaker. And I'll say, how many of you are excited to hear a motivational speaker? And like good audience members, you go, yeah, and I'll say, because I'm not. Meeting planners turn like 9 shades of white and yellow because they're like, what is she doing? You can only inspire someone. If you don't know, like I don't know each of you, but I can inspire you today to tap into something that motivates you, but I'm not doing the work. You're going to, if you decide to do something with it. And that leads me to my guarantee. My guarantee is if you do absolutely nothing I suggest today, absolutely nothing will change as a result of being here. 100% guaranteed. Yeah, you got it, right? I don't do it. I love it when somebody said that to me about 5 years ago. Do you have a guarantee? I said, I can guarantee I'll be on time, I'll be prepared, and I'll have a great thing to share. I can't guarantee what you're going to do with it. So that's my guarantee. Anyway, may I address anything before I get into your top 10 ways to maximize your maximility? You ready? You're all ready? You've had your coffee and you're good to go? All right, well, number 10. Let's see. Who's going to write these things down? Anybody?
Deborah
Remember them all?
York is.
Can you remember them all? April's going to write them?
Deborah is.
Oh, Deborah is. Okay. Number 10. Be the expert in your space for your size, your clients, and your offerings. Please stop telling people, I could do that. Because you know what? When you say you could, or yeah, I would, or I'm not opposed to, if anybody says that to you, run. Don't walk away from them. They're not the expert, and they're not humble enough to say they're not. So be it, or get there, and then start saying you are. Please don't say you are until you are, because that's not Maximilified. If you're not the expert in your space for your size, for your clients, and for your offerings. I'll get asked, Deb, you know, my corporate clients, we have an issue getting people to sign up for our health care. They just don't do it, and then we're hounding them. But they like to listen to you. Can you come in and do our deck on the sign up in October? I'll say I could and I won't. Because it compromises my brand, and I'm not an expert on health care, right? Well, we get tempted in our businesses. Women have an issue saying no, and also wanting to be needed. And we get tempted to go, yeah, I can do that. Next thing you know, you're doing something that isn't related to whatever it was you started. You're not moving people. All of a sudden, you're setting up parties. And that's not related to it, but somehow you allowed it to be. So be the expert in your space. And number 9, be trusting to be trustworthy. In this Slavified land that we live in, that we're fortunate to get to reverse, people want us to trust what they say, but they get to do whatever. And that's not the way it works. If we're not trusting to be trustworthy, then what's the point? Please stop saying honestly and to tell the truth.
Thank you.
Yes.
I can't stand that when people do that, because I'm like, so are you lying to me?
So are you lying?
All the other time.
Because I was kind of curious. You know what I tell people? I'll say, you know what, I'm going to save you from having to say that. Just raise your left hand every time you're being truthful, and that way I'll know. So if your left hand's not up, I'll just figure you're lying. And they go, what? And I'll say, that's how ridiculous it is of you to say that. You didn't know I was going to be so direct, did you? You're like, she seemed kind of nice and cute, and she's a life coach. Well, guess what? I'll tell you the things people won't tell you because they're thinking it. And it impacts your relationships. It impacts your professionalism, and it impacts your communication if you choose not to do these. So what are we dropping?
Honestly, tell you the truth.
Yes, and if you're going to eke in one of those, well, to be truthful, that is just a dressed up fancy, honestly, with so don't even think, well, she didn't say that one, so it's okay. No, it's not. So we're good with that. The other one is, for number 8, is be responsive instead of being reactionary. What might I mean by that?
I mean, don't jump back and bite. Try to answer the question.
Don't jump back and bite. Or jump up and bite. Or jump forward and bite. Please stop biting, right? The reactionary person does that. They don't think through it. And I like to say, if you don't take time to respond, you will be taking time later to apologize for your behaviors.
Yep.
So responding is about taking a breath. I call it BTS. Breathe, tilt your head, and smile before you say something. Just take a minute and do it. Now, don't do this. It's pretty transparent, isn't it? My male clients are like, Deb, I can't possibly do that. And one of the guys, Ed, he'll say, I came up with a new one. It's called Stop, Stare, and Wait. No, but it's breathe, tilt, smile. Just take a breath. Tilt your head slightly, whichever right or left, and just smile before you say something. And if it's your child or your spouse or your team member, it's very hard for somebody not to realize that you're making an effort. Walk away if that doesn't work, because it will not be worth your integrity to say something that you're going to regret later. So don't bite back, right? That's what we're going to call it now. And number 7, be contagious. Is your attitude contagious? Did you wake up feeling good about your life, or did you wake up thinking, gosh, it kind of stinks that on Good Friday I've got to drive to Wesley Chapel? Because you're not doing us a favor by being somewhere. And I'm amazed by the number of people who say to me, oh my gosh, you just wouldn't believe it. And I said, you're right, I just wouldn't believe it. But what I wouldn't believe is that you took my time to tell me that, right? Wow. So be contagious in your attitude. Your actions will follow and people will follow you. And there's that adage that you've probably heard before, that attitudes are contagious, is yours worth catching. And I've met a few people who, the antibiotics aren't necessarily strong enough for me to be around them then. So you want to remove yourself from those type of people. So be contagious with that. And then number 6, be grateful instead of just being full of a lot of greats. Anybody know that person who's like, everything's great, everything's great, everything's great. Next time you see them, they're like, it's great. And what they really mean is my house is underwater. It's great. I've lost my job. I don't know what to do. It's great. My credit cards are up to here. But they keep faking it like that. I'm not a fake it till you make it person. I'm a make it till you make it person. Make it about what's real and make it to the next level. So instead of being full of great, and I like the word great, be grateful first. Be appreciative for it. And you know what? The word great takes on a whole different meaning if you're grateful first. Next is number 5. Are we on number 5?
Yes.
Just checking, making sure. I know we've got note takers. So number 5, be absolutely positively addicted to the truth. Enough said with that one. Number 4, be more interested in others than being interesting to them. Have you seen that person where we call them the toppers? And it's like if you would have scaled Mount Everest, they would have scaled it naked twice and written 4 books about it, right? You're like, really? I didn't know that. It's like no matter what you do, they want to top it. You're sick, and then they were sicker. Yeah. Your kids did this, they did something more. It's like, wow. And that part is they're so busy attempting to be interesting to you, they forgot to be interested in you. And you'll know that if you ever leave and you think, oh my gosh, that person didn't even ask me anything about me. Now I'll tell you something that you may think is strange. Please stop asking, how are you, unless you mean it. And unless you have at least 10 minutes to hear about it. Right. And I don't ask people very often, but when I do, I mean it. And so when I say, how are you, I'm really engaged. But I'll say, good morning, it's a great day. Good morning, how cool that shirt is. That is about interaction, that you're engaging with the person, but it's not taking long. But if you say, hi, how are you? And then the person says, oh, I'm tired, I'm this, and you go, I gotta go. And you know what you say to your friend? Can you believe Debbie? She's like rambling on about all of her stuff. And all I said was, how are you? Can I believe it? Yes, I believe it, because she thought you were being truthful and sincere and that you were really interested. So it doesn't mean you're rude by not asking. Just stop asking when you aren't going to devote the time and energy to it. There's nothing wrong with not asking. Because what are we expecting in return when we say, how are you?
Great.
Great. Or fine. Right? Or fine. Which, when I do Women Stop Annoying Men, that series, fine does not mean fine. Anyway, so you probably Women Stop Annoying Men. It's a series of Women Stop Annoying Women, Women Stop Annoying Men, and Men Stop Annoying Women. And they're the top 10 things that each gender does to annoy either the same gender or the other gender. That's a different talk, but anyway, I will tell you that comes up, because fine does not mean fine. And if we're expecting a fine, what's the point of that interaction? It's phony.
Yeah.
It's phony. It really is. Number 3, be about what and how instead of why. Now, how many of you in the last 48 hours have asked a why question? Anybody?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I were to say, well, Renee, why did you have a banana this morning?
Because it was available.
And then she giggled, right? Is that a sign of confidence, moxie? Yeah. And it's not because of Renee, it's because of what? It's because of the question I asked. I could ask anything. April, how come you wore that dress or skirt, or I'm not sure, but
It matches my shoes.
because it matches my shoes. Did you hear the attitude, right?
Oh!
So why questions evoke defense? What and how questions create conversation. And I will tell you that if you change, I'm not a big just get one thing out of this. I don't know who started that. Like, really? Your time's only worth one thing? So if you get 12 things out of this, make this one of them. Because I really believe you can get way more than one thing out of this. That if you stop asking why. Because if you go back, has there ever been a why question? Nobody ever says, well, why are you so happy today? It's great. They go, why are you so happy today? Right? So why has been developed into this really defensive posturing. When do we start asking why questions? What age?
Three.
Between 17 months and 28 months, depending on the progress with the child. And then when do parents start saying because? Yeah, it's been tracked to about 2 weeks later. So we're conditioned to think that it makes us very defensive. And so if you can replace them with how, if I said, what do you like about bananas? Or how did you decide to put that together? It's a very conversational way of developing your relationship and developing that time that you have together. You're never going to get this time back. So if you're busy going, how are you, and you don't mean it, or not being truthful, or to tell you the truthing people, then all you are is farther along in life without a whole lot more that you lived. So we've got that. So you're good with that?
Yeah.
What do we replace the why questions with?
How.
What and how, absolutely. Number 2, be the product and be the value. Because you are your product. You may have moving and you may have insurance, you may have real estate and cruises and the chamber, but you know what? People are not going to buy your product until they believe in you. People don't necessarily, I mean, some people, thank goodness, but some people may buy my books just because they see them. But you know what? They get the books because they believe in the messaging. And they buy real estate from Jane, or they buy insurance from you, or do the moving through you because they've bought into you. And they don't just buy into you because they like you. They buy into your value because you showed it, you demonstrated it. You had to believe it first. So the moxie that you have is that you went for that expertise. The humility is that you want to show value. Because if you're willing to show value to people, you're saying, I know I'm good, and you can put me to the test. And sometimes people will say to me, are you really going to go in front of that group and do a 10-minute presentation to see if you get the bid? Sure I will. Because they don't know, and just because you think I'm terrific, if I say that to somebody who does, it doesn't mean they know. But if I choose not to do it, that's not humble. That's very vain to think that it's not worth showing the value. So if you ever think that, and you think, I don't know if I want to do this, or if this is worth it, think, is there value in it there, and is my product the fit so I can show value for them? And that's really where you want to be maximilified. And the number 1 tip is to be an intentional example for others to sample. And I say that in the fact that each step that you take in the day, every step I've taken here, you've watched. And every one of them is not perfect. But every one of them I own. Because I am an example for which you can sample. If you want to be maximilified, imagine if I came in, hair on fire, oh my gosh, you wouldn't have believed it, da, 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 da. But I'm going to talk to you about being great in your life and being balanced. Well, as soon as I get on stage, I'll just do that. And the same is true for you. Whatever your business is, if you are talking about how things are disrupted, if you are complaining about things, you aren't the sample that others see to take from that example. Instead, and I'm not saying be fake about it, think solution-based. There may be issues, we all have them. We all make mistakes. I double booked something recently, and I said, please forgive me. I realized I put that in my calendar wrong. Would you prefer we reschedule? Do you want me to get another speaker for you? Because that was my responsibility. And the person said, oh wow, we already have a few people coming. I said, I'll get a great speaker for you. And the reality is they could never call me back. But you know what? That's okay. Because the value was there to have a great speaker. It didn't have to be me. And that would have been crazy if I didn't set that example to say, well, you know what? in your email you had the 18th, it didn't matter. And they did. They had a different date. But you know what? When I clarified, it wasn't clear. And it still is okay. And they're still going to have a great experience with it because I can be the example that others want to sample. And you know what the reality is they'll probably come back. But it's okay if they don't because they'll know that that was with integrity. So keep those things in mind. So who's got all of the 10? Does anybody have all the 10? Because we're going to come back to it. Okay, all right. This side of the room is a lot of writers. How many of you are firstborns who wrote this stuff down? Anybody? Who wrote it down? Really? Did you write all of them? How many lastborns wrote everything down? Yeah, very few, right? We were really distracted. We were hoping that, you were just going to give them to us, right? I'm a lastborn, so we appreciate. We all have those tendencies. So today, as we spent these few minutes together, I shared with you a little bit about what moximility is. What was it?
Moxie and humility.
Moxie and humility, absolutely. And what were the 3 reasons things don't get done? Don't know, don't want to, or don't want to. And who usually doesn't want to?
Our kids.
Debbie Lundberg, who has no kids, came in and told us that it was our kids who don't want to do anything. Yes, okay. Who is it really? Us, right? And maybe your kids because they're a product of you. So I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Maybe half point on that one, right? Okay, and then 4 drivers. What drives people? What are their motivators that you can only impact, you can't necessarily change?
Money, time, opportunity. People.
Yes,
People.
money, time, opportunity, and people. You got them all. You got them all. And what was my guarantee?
If you don't do anything, guarantee you'll get nothing.
If you don't do anything, guaranteed you'll get nothing, right? Anybody plan on doing anything differently?
Yes.
A few of you?
Yes.
I'm concerned about a few of you. All right, so let's go over the top 10 list and see how we did with it. What was number 10?
Expert.
Be the expert in your space, absolutely. What's number 9?
Be trustworthy.
Be trusting to be trustworthy. What's number 8? Be responsive instead of reactionary, also known as don't bite back. Right? Number 7. Be contagious in that good sort of way. I don't mean carry antibiotics with you. I don't mean it that way. What's number 6?
Be grateful instead of
Be grateful instead of just being full of greats. Absolutely. What's number 5? Be absolutely positively addicted to the truth. Your number 4? Be more interested in others than being interesting to them. Number 3?
Be about how.
Be about what and how instead of why. And what was the reason there?
Defensive.
Why is defensive? What and how creates conversation. Absolutely. Number 3. Oops, did I just do number 3? Number 2.
Be the product.
Be the product and be the value. And what is the number 1 way you can maximize your moximility?
Be an example.
Be an example. Others can sample. Because after all, you probably didn't come out on this Good Friday morning just to learn how to fluff chickens. So thank you.